The Draconian Empire ships filled Earth's skies like dark storm clouds. For 7 decades, they had moved across the galaxy, taking planet after planet. No one had stopped them. Now they looked down at Earth, their next target. Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of his ship, the Eternal Dominance. It was the largest vessel in the fleet, nearly 5 miles long. Through the viewing screen, he watched Earth turn slowly below him. His scaled fingers tapped against the command console. "Such a pretty blue world," he said to his second-in-command. "Soon it will be just another Draconian mining colony." The reptilian captain's cold yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the planet. The humans had only reached their moon. They had a small station in orbit and a few bases on Mars. Their weapons were primitive. Their nations still fought each other. They would be easy to conquer. "Send Lieutenant Juwu to deliver our terms," Tejo ordered. The usual offer: complete surrender or complete destruction. The humans had detected the Draconian fleet 3 weeks ago. Their news channels had shown panic, religious gatherings, and people fleeing cities. Some military forces had launched missiles, but these had been destroyed long before reaching the Draconian ships. But something didn't feel right to Tejo. The human response seemed too predictable, almost staged. Lieutenant Juwu's shuttle descended to the United Earth Council building in Geneva. The lieutenant was young for such an important task, but he had proven himself brutal and effective in 3 previous conquests. His tall, muscular form and gleaming black scales made him an imposing messenger. The council chamber was a half-circle of seats, with 50 human representatives watching as Juwu entered. He expected fear. Instead, he found calm faces. "People of Earth," Juwu announced in perfect English, "the Draconian Empire claims your world. You will surrender all military assets, resources, and accept our rule. You have 24 hours to comply or face extinction." Director Henjin, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair, rose from her central seat. "We understand your terms, Lieutenant. However, we request 48 hours to prepare our response and organize an orderly transition of power." Juwu frowned. This was not the reaction he expected. Where was the begging? The offers of tribute? The desperate counterattacks? 24 hours is standard," he replied. "Perhaps," Hyunjin said with a small smile. "But Earth is not a standard world. 48 hours will allow us to prevent unnecessary chaos and damage to the assets you wish to claim." After consulting with Captain Tejo, Juwu reluctantly agreed. Back on the Eternal Dominance, Tejo reviewed sensor data. Something was definitely wrong. Earth's militaries remained in their bases. Civilians went about their daily lives. Some even stood on rooftops, taking pictures of the Draconian ships. "They act as if they aren't afraid," Tejo told his advisors. "Scan deeper. Find what they're hiding." What the Draconians couldn't detect was Earth's greatest secret. 100 years earlier, humans had discovered technology far beyond what they publicly used. Rather than reveal it, world leaders had agreed to develop it in secret, knowing that eventually someone like the Draconians would come. 3 miles beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Suman looked at the final activation sequence for the planetary defense grid. For decades, tiny quantum nodes had been placed throughout Earth's atmosphere, oceans, and crust. Invisible to conventional detection, they created a network that could manipulate space itself. "All systems ready," Director Dr. Suman reported through a secure channel to Hyunjin. "Good," the director replied. "They've taken our bait. Continue monitoring their fleet. If they make any aggressive move before our deadline, activate immediately." In his quarters, Lieutenant Juwu reviewed the Earth data. Their technology was primitive, yet they had requested extra time with such confidence. Their leader had even smiled at him. Not the smile of someone afraid, but of someone who knew something he didn't. For the first time in his military career, Juwu felt uncertain. He sent a message to Captain Tejo. "Something is wrong. The humans are too calm. They're hiding something." Tejo read the message and looked again at the blue planet below. 7 decades of conquest had taught him to trust his instincts, and his instincts told him that Earth was not what it seemed. They had walked into something they didn't understand. He just couldn't figure out what. Admiral Dongwon paced the command deck of his destroyer, the Swift Claw. He had conquered 6 worlds personally, and this would be his 7th, but something felt wrong. The humans were not acting as they should. "Show me the major cities again," he ordered. The screens lit up with views of Tokyo, New York, London, and other human settlements. People walked the streets. Children played in parks. Some humans even stood on tall buildings with signs welcoming the aliens. "This makes no sense," Dongwon said, his tail twitching nervously. "They should be hiding, praying, fighting, something." Lieutenant Minji, his sensor officer, looked up from her station. "Admiral, I've completed another deep scan of the planet as ordered. Still no detection of hidden weapons or shield systems. Their military forces remain in their bases." Dongwon's scaled face showed his confusion. In his 30 years of military service, he had never seen this reaction to impending doom. "They requested 48 hours, he said. "Why ask for time if they plan to do nothing with it?" Captain Taho's face appeared on the main screen. "Admiral, the deadline approaches in 1 hour. The fleet is in position for the first wave of bombardment." "Any unusual activity?" Dongwon asked. "Nothing," Taho replied. "It's as if they've accepted their fate." But 3 miles below the Himalayan mountains, inside a hidden facility called Sanctuary Deep, Dr. Subin was very busy indeed. The small, quiet scientist had spent 40 years developing Earth's secret defense system. Now, surrounded by screens showing the Draconian fleet positions, she worked quickly. "Power levels at 87%, reported her assistant Juno. "All nodes responding." Dr. Subin nodded, her fingers flying across holographic controls. She looked nothing like a humanity-saving genius. At 62, with simple clothes and gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun, she might have been someone's kind grandmother. But her mind had created the most advanced defensive system ever conceived. "The quantum field is stabilizing," she said. "We're right on schedule." Director Hyunjin's voice came through the secure channel. "Status report, Dr. Subin." "We'll be ready when they act," Subin replied. "The grid is nearly charged." On the surface, in cities across the world, humans went about their business with remarkable calm. They had been prepared for this day. For decades, every child had learned in school that Earth had a secret defense. They didn't know the details that would have risked alien spies discovering the truth, but they knew enough to trust the plan. In Paris, a young woman named Yuma sat at a cafe directly beneath one of the Draconian ships. The massive vessel hung in the sky like a dark mountain. She sipped her coffee and took photos with her phone. "Aren't you scared?" asked a tourist who had been stranded when air travel was suspended. "No," Yunho replied with a smile. "They think we're helpless. That's exactly what we want them to think." Aboard the flagship Eternal Dominance, Captain Taho received a message from the Supreme Commander of the Draconian forces. "The deadline approaches. Begin bombardment of their military installations at the exact time stated in our ultimatum. No delays." Taho acknowledged the order and prepared his weapons. Still, doubt nagged at him. The humans were acting too confidently. 30 minutes before the deadline, Admiral Dongwon reviewed the bombardment plans one last time. His ships would target Earth's military bases first, then power plants and communication centers. Within hours, human civilization would collapse. "Admiral," Lieutenant Minji called out suddenly, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the planet's surface." Dongwon rushed to her station. "What kind of readings?" "I'm not sure," she replied, frowning at her instruments. "It's like tiny energy points appearing all over the planet. Millions of them, but they're too small to be weapons." Dongwon ordered an immediate report to Captain Tayo, but the captain dismissed his concerns. "The deadline stands," Taho said firmly. "Prepare to fire." In Sanctuary Deep, Dr. Subin watched the final countdown. The quantum grid was ready, its billions of nanonodes now fully charged. Each node was smaller than a grain of dust, undetectable by conventional scanners. Together, they formed a web that could bend the very fabric of reality. "They're targeting our military bases," Junho said, looking at the tactical display. "Weapons systems powering up." Dr. Subin took a deep breath. "Let them fire first. Then we'll show them why Earth has never been conquered." The deadline arrived. Captain Tahoe gave the order that had destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. "All ships, begin bombardment." As the Draconian weapons prepared to fire, Dr. Subin pressed her hand against the activation panel and whispered, "Now." The main cannon of the Draconian destroyer Iron Talon fired first. Its deadly beam shot toward Earth's surface, aimed at a military base in North America. Captain Tahoe watched from his command chair, expecting to see a massive explosion. Instead, something impossible happened. The beam never reached Earth. In the moment after the weapon fired, a strange shimmer appeared in space around the Iron Talon. The ship seemed to waver, like a reflection in disturbed water. Then, without any sound or explosion, it simply vanished. What just happened? Captain Tahoe stood up in shock. Where did the Iron Talon go? His sensor officer checked her screens frantically. "Sir, it's gone. No debris. No energy signature. It's like it never existed." Before Tahoe could respond, reports flooded in from across the fleet. 2 more ships had disappeared in the same strange way. Then 5 more. Then a dozen. Commander Minho stood on the bridge of the Silent Hunter, watching in horror as the Void Striker in front of him rippled strangely, then blinked out of existence. Full reverse thrust. He shouted to his crew, "Get us away from Earth." But as his ship turned to flee, Minho saw the same shimmer begin to form around his own vessel. He tried to send a warning to the rest of the fleet, but it was too late. The viewports showed space itself bending around the ship. The stars stretched into lines of light. Then darkness came. When light returned seconds later, the Silent Hunter seemed to be in the same position. Earth was still below them. But something was different. The rest of the fleet was gone. "Where is everyone?" Minho asked. "Scan for the fleet." His sensor officer worked her controls frantically. "Sir, I can't find any of our ships. But this is strange. I can't detect any human satellites either. And the planet's radio signals are different." Minho realized with growing dread that they were no longer in the same space as before. They were somewhere else that looked identical to Earth orbit, but wasn't. Across what remained of the Draconian fleet, similar scenes played out. Ships disappeared one after another. The mighty armada that had terrified 17 star systems was vanishing ship by ship. Admiral Dongwon on the flagship, Swift Claw, watched his sensor displays in horror. Each red dot representing a Draconian vessel blinked out, one after another. Of the 300 ships that had surrounded Earth, fewer than 50 remained. "What weapon is this?" he demanded of his science officer. "How are they doing it?" "It's not a weapon, sir," the officer replied, his voice shaking. "It's like space itself is moving them somewhere else." Dongwon had faced many enemies and many weapons in his long military career. He had never felt fear like this before. The humans hadn't even fired a single shot, yet they were defeating his entire fleet. He opened a channel to Supreme Command, millions of light years away. "This is Admiral Dongwon. Earth defense capabilities far exceed our intelligence. They are removing our ships from normal space using unknown technology. Recommend immediate retreat and..." The shimmer appeared around the Swift Claw before he could finish. Dongwon watched as reality itself seemed to bend around his ship. The stars stretched, twisted, and then snapped back into place. His first thought was that nothing had happened. Earth still turned below them. The sun still shone, but every other Draconian ship was gone. "Send a message to any ships still out there," he ordered. His communications officer tried every frequency. "Sir, I can't contact anyone. And the human communications are wrong. I'm picking up signals, but they're not the same ones we monitored earlier. Dongwon realized the terrible truth. We're not in real space anymore. The humans have moved us. Somewhere else. Far below, in Sanctuary Deep, Dr. Subin watched as her quantum grid worked perfectly. Each Draconian ship was being transferred to a parallel pocket universe, an exact duplicate of Earth space that existed only as a quantum construct. All ships successfully displaced, Junho reported. The grid held perfectly. Dr. Subin smiled tiredly. Her life's work had saved humanity without firing a single shot. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. Isolate each ship in its own simulation. Let's see what our visitors do when they realize they're in our aquarium, not the other way around. On the surface, humans looked up as the Draconian ships wavered and disappeared one by one. In Paris, Yunha watched the huge ship above her cafe shimmer and vanish. People around her cheered and hugged each other. Some cried with relief. Where did they go? Asked the tourist sitting next to her. Yunha smiled. Somewhere they can learn about humanity without hurting anyone. In his final moments in real space, Admiral Dongwon sent one last message toward Draconian space, knowing it would never reach his leaders. Earth is not what we thought. Retreat immediately. They have mastered space itself. Then his ship too vanished completely from our universe. Commander Jae-hyun's ship, the Dawn Striker, drifted in Earth orbit. For 3 days, they had tried to contact the rest of the fleet. For 3 days, they have failed. Try the emergency frequencies again, Jae-hyun ordered his communications officer. Still nothing, sir, the officer replied. It's like we're the only ship left. But they weren't alone. Their sensors detected other Draconian vessels scattered throughout the solar system. The strange thing was that none of them answered calls. Each appeared to be completely isolated. Jae-hyun stared at the blue planet below them. They had fired on Earth, but nothing had happened except their strange displacement. Now they watched humans on the surface going about their normal lives, seemingly unaware of the alien ship above them. Something is wrong, Jae-hyun said. Send a shuttle down. Let's see if they even notice us. The shuttle descended toward a city identified as Berlin. As it approached, something odd happened. The shuttle's sensors showed people looking up and pointing, but the city streets remained calm on visual scans. It was as if the humans could see them, but chose not to react. When the shuttle landed in a park, no one approached it. No military forces surrounded it. People simply walked by as if it weren't there. It's like we're ghosts, the shuttle pilot reported back. On the 5th day, Jae-hyun witnessed something impossible. A human woman simply appeared on the bridge of his ship. She wore a simple white lab coat with a name tag that read Professor Yunji. She carried a tablet and studied the Draconians with calm, curious eyes. The bridge crew jumped to their feet, drawing weapons. Don't bother, Professor Yunji said in perfect Draconian language. I'm not physically here. You can't touch me. Jae-hyun approached her cautiously. What have you done to us? Where are we? You're in a quantum simulation, she explained, making notes on her tablet. A perfect copy of our solar system, but isolated from reality. Your sensors can't tell the difference, but you're no longer in the same universe as Earth. She looked around the bridge, examining their technology with interest. Fascinating ship design, much more efficient than we expected. Jae-hyun tried to grab her arm, but his hand passed right through her. Release us immediately. I'm afraid that's not possible, Professor Yunji said. You came to conquer us. We simply removed you from our reality without harming you. Consider it a more humane approach than how you've treated other species. Before Jae-hyun could respond, she vanished as suddenly as she had appeared. Similar scenes played out across the scattered Draconian fleet. Human observers appeared on different ships, studying the aliens and their technology. Some Draconian captains tried to attack the humans. Others tried to negotiate. Some simply went mad from the realization that they were now specimens in a human zoo. Admiral Dongwon on the Swift Claw received reports from the few ships he could still contact. Each described the same thing: human observers appearing and disappearing at will, studying them like curious animals. They turned the tables on us, Dongwon said to his officers. We came to put them in cages. Now we're in theirs. Meanwhile, on the real Earth, the United Earth Council gathered in their chamber in Geneva. The mood was triumphant but serious. General Taeyong stood before them, presenting his report. The quantum displacement shield worked perfectly, he announced. All 312 Draconian ships were successfully transferred to the simulation. None were destroyed. No lives were lost on either side. Director Hyunjin nodded with satisfaction. And what have we learned about them? Dr. Subin stepped forward. Their technology is advanced, but predictable. They rely on brute force rather than innovation. Most importantly, we've confirmed they are part of a much larger empire. There are more of them out there. General Taeyong brought up a holographic display showing the scattered Draconian fleet in their quantum prison. Now we must decide what to do with thousands of captured hostile aliens. The council chambers filled with debate. Some members wanted to keep the Draconians contained forever, studying them and their technology. Others suggested selective memory alteration and release. A few even proposed using the captives to learn the location of the Draconian homeworld for a preemptive strike. Professor Yunji, freshly returned from her observation of Commander Jaehyun's ship, joined the discussion. We should remember that these beings came to conquer, not to understand. If we release them, they will return with a larger force. Dr. Subin had a different perspective. Perhaps not, if we send them back with the right message. Fear can be a powerful deterrent. Director Hyunjin considered both viewpoints. We need to learn more before deciding. Continue the observation. Focus on their leadership structure and cultural values. We need to understand if they're capable of peaceful coexistence. As the council debated, Commander Jaehyun on the Dawn Striker came to a terrible realization. After watching Professor Yunji disappear, he had ordered his engineers to analyze what had happened. Their conclusion was chilling. The humans have mastered quantum reality manipulation, his chief engineer reported. They can create entire universes. Our weapons, our ships, our entire empire. None of it matters against such power. For the first time in his life, Jaehyun felt true fear. Not just for himself, but for his entire species. The scout ship Horizon Seeker drifted in darkness at the edge of the quantum simulation. Admiral Dongwon sat in the captain's chair, watching as Dr. Kyungmin made final adjustments to the ship's systems. After 3 months in captivity, they were being released. Why us? Dongwon asked the human scientist. Why not keep us like the others? Dr. Kyungmin looked up from her work. She was a small woman with kind eyes that contrasted with her serious expression. You're taking a message home. The procedure had been subtle but effective. Over the past month, Dr. Kyungmin had used targeted quantum fields to adjust the neurological patterns in Dongwon and his crew. They could still think clearly, still remember everything, but the burning desire to conquer and destroy had been dampened. Will we remember what happened here? Asked Lieutenant Ninji, who had been selected as part of the messenger crew. Yes, Dr. Kyungmin said. That's the point. You need to remember and explain to your leaders exactly what happened, and what will happen if they send another fleet. The final preparations were complete. The humans gathered to witness the departure. Colonel Jinwoo, a tall military man with sharp eyes, handed Dongwon a small quantum data core. This contains scans of our defense system and capabilities, Jinwoo explained. Enough to convince your leaders, but not enough to help them defeat us. It also contains our terms for future relations. Dongwon took the device. And if we choose to return with a larger force? Colonel Jinwoo smiled thinly. Then we won't create a nice simulation next time. With a flash of light and a strange twisting sensation, the Horizon Seeker was transferred back to normal space. Dongwon checked the navigation systems. They were exactly where they had been 3 months ago, at the edge of Earth's solar system. Set course for home, he ordered quietly. Maximum speed. The journey took several weeks. As they traveled, Dongwon reviewed the data core repeatedly. What he saw terrified him. The quantum technology the humans possessed wasn't just advanced, it was beyond comprehension. They could create pocket universes, manipulate matter at the subatomic level, and potentially displace entire planets if they chose. When the Horizon Seeker finally approached Draconian space, they were immediately surrounded by military vessels. "Unknown ship, identify yourself," came the harsh command over the communication system. "This is Admiral Dongwon of the Earth Invasion Fleet. Request immediate audience with Supreme Leader Yoongi." The news spread quickly through the Empire. One ship returning from the Lost Fleet. The Supreme Leader himself came to the space station where Dongwon docked. The Admiral was treated as a returning hero, the lone survivor of a great disaster. In the Grand Council chamber, Dongwon stood before the Draconian leadership and told his story. He described the strange disappearance of the fleet, the quantum prison, and the 3 months of study by human scientists. Supreme Leader Yoongi, an ancient Draconian with faded scales and cold eyes, listened without interruption. When Dongwon finished, he asked one question. "Can we defeat them?" Dongwon connected the data core to the main display system. Immediately, detailed scans of Earth's quantum defense grid appeared, showing its structure and capabilities. The Draconian scientists in attendance gasped as they recognized technology centuries beyond their understanding. Then Colonel Jinwoo's recorded message played for the entire Draconian leadership. The Draconian fleet encountered difficulties during their visit to Earth. "We've kept most of your people as guests to learn more about your culture. We could have destroyed them, but chose not to. We look forward to establishing diplomatic relations when you're ready for peaceful contact. Until then, we respectfully request that you avoid Earth space. This message serves as the only warning you will receive." The council chamber fell silent. For 7 decades, the Draconian Empire had expanded unchallenged, conquering every world they encountered. Now they faced a species that had defeated them without firing a shot. "They could have killed us all," Dongwon said into the silence. "Instead, they put us in a cage to study us. They see us as we have seen others, as specimens, not equals." Supreme Leader Yoongi's claws clicked against his throne as he considered the situation. "And our fleet? Can they be recovered?" "They're being held in a quantum simulation," Dongwon explained. "The humans say they will consider releasing them after diplomatic relations are established." The military commanders argued for assembling a larger force, for seeking revenge. But the scientists and intelligence officers urged caution. The human technology was simply too advanced. Finally, Supreme Leader Yoongi raised his hand for silence. His decision would determine the future of 2 species. "Remove Earth from our expansion charts," he ordered. "Mark their solar system as prohibited space. We will observe from a distance until we better understand what we're facing." As the council dispersed, Admiral Dongwon felt a strange sense of relief. Something had changed inside him during those months in captivity. He no longer saw conquest as the only path forward. In his quarters that night, he found a small device hidden in his personal belongings. When activated, it showed a hologram of Dr. Kyungmin. "By now, you've delivered our message," her image said. "Remember, we're watching and waiting. The choice between war and peace is yours, but we've given you a gift. The capacity to truly consider both options. We hope to meet again under better circumstances." The hologram faded, leaving Dongwon alone with his thoughts and the hope for a different future than the one he had once imagined. The end.